Have you ever noticed that helping other people feels easy? But the moment someone tries to help you, you immediately say, "No, thanks. We're good. We've got this. Don't worry about it." I had a stranger teach me a lesson this weekend that I didn't even realize I needed. And honestly, my first instinct was to refuse it. Welcome back to Struggle and Strength Moms Balancing It All with Nikki. Today, I want to tell you a story about donuts. Well, it's not really about donuts. It's about a story about kindness, pride, gratitude, and why so many of us struggle to accept help, even when it's offered with a completely open heart. So, I want to get you into the picturing what our summers look like now that school has ended for the kids. And we usually have a very strict schedule because the kids are home with me and I work remotely. So I have to make sure that they're productive, I'm productive, and it's not just a summer of getting their brains to mush, right? Like a lot of times, summer, the kids don't do anything, they don't actively use their brains. And we worry about them going back to school. Even the teachers are like, oh my gosh, you guys lost so much stuff over the summertime. And it's because a lot of kids, they just, they roam around, they play on Nintendo, they watch TV way much more than what they would have if they were in a regular school day. But the reason being is that us moms, like, we need time. We need our peace. We need time to do work during the day. And so those are the things that we kind of are left with is, re reverting to allowing them to have screen time way more than what we would want them to have. But our summers look very different than most, and I know I'm a crazy person, but, for the last, oh my gosh, at least 6 years, I would say, every summer we run. We work out, we run, the kids do all kinds of different things, presentations. This summer, I told them that they need to make money. But I'm gonna talk today about our running, and when we started off, they were, gosh, like 4, 5, and 6, and we ran a half a mile to a mile daily, and then on the weekends, we would run 2 miles. Now, since they're older, 8, 9, and oh gosh, 11, we run 2 to 4 miles daily. Usually, it's 2 miles daily, and on the weekends, it's 4 miles, and we run to the donut shop, which is 2 miles there, 2 miles back, and in the middle, they get donuts. So my daughter had her diving competition this weekend, so she was gone, and my husband took her because I took her the last several days. So this morning we woke up and I told the boys, "You need to be up by 8 o'clock." And they set their alarms, they got up, they came into my bed and they're like, "Mommy, we're up, we're all ready to go." And I was like, "Great, okay, we're gonna go." And the last several summers have been kind of an eye awakening for me because and I told you, we're not very normal, and I don't know how I raised my kids to do this, but they do. So the last several summers when we run to the donut shop, they all argue about who's going to pay. And it's usually, one of they all have their wallets and they're like, I'm paying this time. And the next one's like, no, I'm paying. And so we used to run to the donut shop every week. And every week they're spending about $25 for donuts, which I know seems ridiculous these days, but it is what it is. And so this time I said, "Okay, well, who's buying?" And they're like, "Oh, we're poor." Well, they've spent their money, the last several summers on donuts, and then they also, we went to Universal last summer, and so they're like, "Oh gosh, we're poor." Even though they do clean our house, and I do pay them to clean our house like a cleaning lady. I said, "What about all your money?" They're like, "Oh, we don't have hardly any, regardless." So I said, "Okay, fine. I have $14 and you guys, that's all you get." So, like I said, it's about 4 miles round trip. Part of it, we do for exercise just to make sure that we stay in shape because they play soccer and sports and all that kind of stuff. Part of it's for adventure, like just so that they can see, like the experience of going out there. Today, there were a lot of bikers out there. And so I tell them every time you see a biker, you wave, you say, "Hi, good morning." So they're learning manners and etiquette while we're running. And also, like, which side of the road do you run on? Like, do we run on the all over the place? And then we have, the people coming at us from every direction. And part of it is also the tradition because we've done this literally for the last 6 summers. And when it first started off, the youngest, we'd have to bring a stroller. Now I let them bring one bike, and so then they split the bike, and they take turns riding it, in order to get us to and from the donut shop. So, I think it's really important for kids to learn how money works, and as I mentioned, I only gave them $14. So, of course, I don't wanna spend my money, but I'm willing because they've done a very good job being very supportive of their sister this week when she had her dive meet, and they've been really good around the house. So, $14, that's it. We got to the donut shop, they rode the bike, split it half and half, and when we got there, it wasn't very busy. There was one person that was paying, there was another lady in front of us, and then us. And usually it's jam-packed, but I would assume it's because we went a little bit later, around 9 o'clock ish. And so most people are in church at that time. We're going to go later on today, but we wanted to make sure that we got our run in. So we were standing in line and they were trying to figure out what they were going to get. I told them, okay, how much money do we have? They're like $14. I said, okay, that's it. So you need to figure out what you want, how much it's going to be able to make sure that you don't go over. And so I told them they needed to ask for the prices, but then I realized they were up on little blackboard up atop. So, we're looking at the sausages and there's like small sausages were $1.69 versus a large one that was $3.19. And at first, my middle son was like, hey, it's cheaper if you get a larger sausage than it is if you get two smaller ones. Actually, sorry, he said that the other way around. He said two smaller ones are cheaper than one large one. And I was like, okay, wait, let's do our math here. And so, the two smaller ones were $1.69. So I was like rounding, okay, what's $1.70 times two? And he's like, oh, it's $3.40. I said, so which is cheaper, the large sausage or the two small sausages? He's like, oh, the large sausage. So that was a good learning lesson. And then, they're adding things up. And I was like, hey, don't forget about the tax because they charge tax on the donuts, which is crazy. But, anyways, and so I said, for every dollar, there's 8 cents in tax. And my middle was like, what? I said, yeah. So how much do you each get to spend? And he goes, $7. I said, okay. So what's 7 times 8? And he thought a minute and he's like, 56. And I was like, fantastic. And so I was like, you have to account for each of you has $56, 56 cents in tax. And he's like, oh my gosh, like they're finally realizing things add up. And so then they're talking about, okay, what can they afford? Also, we have this little backpack. And the one reason why I allow them to ride one bike is because we have to bring the donuts home. And so we have this bag or backpack that we put the donuts into, hopefully without getting smushed. But we've mastered it over the years, let me tell you. And so, they're having to figure out, okay, what can we fit in the bag and also make sure that they don't give us any boxes. Cause a lot of times, especially if you get like the chocolate ones and you mix them in with the regular, then they like to put them in a box. Well, we can't carry the box. So we got into all of these conversations and it was so educational, not only our run there, but then we're doing math at the donut shop. And um you know, they're calculating, they're adding, removing items, like thinking about what they want to do, trying to make the budget work. And the lady in front of us, she got done with paying and she turns to us and she immediately was like, she had a 20 in her hand and she was like, breakfast is on me. And she gave it to the boys. And I was like, what? Like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, I'm totally serious. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, like you don't have to do that. She's like, no, no, no. Like, I want to. And at first I was thinking like, no, 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 like we have our own money. This is good. Like I'm teaching the boys about taxes and dollars and they're working it out and we don't need to splurge. And, she just smiled and said, breakfast is on me today. And I was like, I don't want to insult her by not taking the money. And so I eventually accepted it. But here's what was interesting is that my first reaction, it wasn't gratitude. It was it was discomfort because I was thinking like, does she think that we can't afford it? Like we're running to and from the donut shop, maybe we don't have a car or because most like, I can tell you there's not one single person that I've ever seen in the 6 years that we run to the donut shop ever run to the donut shop. But everybody always comments being like, "Oh my gosh, you guys ran here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's 2 miles there, 2 miles back." And they're like, "Holy cow." And I have an 8, 9, and 10-year-old. Well, now they're 8, 9, and 10, but before they were like 5, 6, and 7, you know, 6, 7, and 8. We've done this every summer, and every summer, the little donut shop ladies, they're like, "Oh my goodness, you ran here," because they can see us red-faced, and we're all huffing and puffing, and we're sharing one little water bottle, and so, it's very impressive, I get it, yes, but also I was thinking like, okay, I mean, yes, it's great, I love that she handed us the money, and also taught the boys, about giving, and those thoughts that happened instantly, like, does she think we can't afford breakfast? Does she feel sorry for us? Does it look like we need help? Like, I had to catch myself because I I bet you that none of those thoughts actually were what she was thinking. Like, those thoughts didn't come from her. They came from me. She wasn't judging us, she wasn't criticizing us, she wasn't making assumptions about our finances, like, she doesn't even notice. She just simply wanted to do something kind, and that's it. There was no agenda, no expectation, just kindness. And it made me think, like, why is it so easy for me to help someone else, but so difficult for us to accept help? And as moms, we're usually the ones giving. We give our time, we give our energy, we give our attention, we give our money, our support, our love, even our food. I mean, all the time, my kids would be like, I'm still hungry. I'm like, here, take whatever's on my plate. I'd rather you eat than me. We are so comfortable being the helper, but being helped, that's the uncomfortable part because receiving requires vulnerability. Receiving requires trust. And receiving requires admitting that maybe we don't have to carry everything ourselves. I totally remember when I was pregnant, I still wanted to be like this strong mama, and everybody be like, let me help you. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm used to it. And it's like the fact that, like, I love that you want to help me. But at the same time, when you're gone, I'm going to have to do it all on my own. I had 3 kids under 3. I had 3 C-section se 3 C-sections back to back to back in under 36 months. That's craziness. My body was, wow, destroyed in those 36 months or 32, however much it came out to be. But it was craziness that, you know, I never wanted help because I didn't wanna admit I wasn't strong enough or that I couldn't do it on my own. And the coolest part about what happened afterwards is that my boys realized that they could still get exactly what they wanted because we still had that $14. They're like, "Wow, now we have $39, mommy." Actually, it was only $34, they said. I just added wrong. Oops. But now, instead of being greedy and getting like the whole entire donut shop worth of donuts, because they're like, "Oh, now we have more money." They had enough left over to buy something for their sister. And so we didn't use the whole entire $20. And it was great to know that they didn't take advantage of what that kindness gave. It wasn't about what they could get, it then became about what they could give. So one act of generosity created another. So because they got breakfast on this woman, they now were able to buy breakfast for their sister, who didn't get to go to the donut shop because she was diving. And I realized that they were learning something much bigger than just budgeting. They were learning gratitude. And when we got home, I kept thinking about that woman. She'll probably never know how much that moment stayed with me. But she reminded me of something important, that not every blessing is supposed to be earned. Some blessings are simply meant to be received. And maybe sometimes we rob ourselves of joy because we're so busy trying to be independent that we won't allow people to bless us. And this is true for me completely. Like recently, my daughter's dive schedule just totally rocked our world. They lost one of their pools. We're having to go out to a different one. It's further away. We're having to go multiple times a day. And I've never asked for help. I've never carpooled. I've never trusted anybody else with my kids, which is kind of crazy. But that being said, in order for my daughter to do that, I had to reach out and lower my guard and ask for someone to help. Now, there wasn't anybody that could help, but at the same time, that was not something that I'm used to doing, is asking other people to help us carpool or get my kids to places. Now, I remember when I was growing up, especially when I got to the high school years, like, I would try and pawn rides off of whoever I could so I didn't have to well, 1, I missed the bus, and 2, I was like, "I need to get home somehow," and so whoever I could find is like, "Can I get a ride home?" That was way back in the day when both my parents worked. I mean, now both my kids' parents worked, obviously, as well, but it's different, like, our school, we don't go in the neighborhood school, so it's far, it's not like I can ask some people to help out, but it's just I think that we need to, as women, as moms, allow people to help out. And I had a really good conversation with my childhood best friends. Their birthday is 2 days after mine. And they said something about their parents that was similar to this, is that their dad always wants to help their mom, but their mom's so strong-headed and so stubborn, and she doesn't ever really want anybody to help out. She's like, "Nope, I'm good. I got this." And when she was, like, super duper sick, like, sicker than anybody ever even imagined, at that moment, she finally had to let go, and she finally had to let people help. And that was when her husband got to shine. He's waiting for that moment. It only took however long, however many years they've been married, 50 some odd years, I would assume. And that's the hard part, is that we as moms, as women, as stubborn personality type A women, we try to do everything on our own. And when people ask us to help, it's like I take my chair and my table and all this stuff with me to my daughter's diving or the kids' activities every time that I can so I can get some work in, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, can I help you?" I'm like, "No, no, no, like, I got this." And I just need to start letting them help out because you know what? It's killing me. And there's gonna be a moment in time where I'm not capable of doing that anymore, and I'm gonna have to feel comfortable asking for help. So I challenge you today, I want you to think about one thing you can let somebody else help you out with. And actually, I've been getting a little bit better because the kids really want to help out with things at home. And so, just like the cleaning, like we were cleaning the house and they're like, we want to clean. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'd rather pay you than us. So go ahead. So I'm letting them clean the house. Now, is it perfect? No. But I can go back and I can be like, hey, you missed this spot. And I can tell them and I can help them out. They're helping me, so I don't have to worry about cleaning the house. So today I want to leave you with a question. When was the last time someone tried to help you? Did you let them? Or did you immediately say, no, thanks, I've got it, or we're good, not a big deal? Because maybe, just maybe, the blessing wasn't in the $20. The blessing was learning to receive it. And that's what I want to leave you with today. So the next time somebody asks to help you out, I challenge you to say, sure. Yes, please. I would love that. Learn to start receiving it because there's going to come a time in your life where you're going to need it. And all those times of rejection, it's going to be so hard for you to accept it. So start getting used to that now. And you know what? It also helps take care of you, reducing that mental load, that physical load, like whatever you're carrying that day. By letting someone else help you and getting that blessing, you're actually helping yourself with health, with wellness, with your mental status, and you're showing your kids gratitude and blessings in disguise. So, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Struggle and Strength Moms Balancing It All with Nikki. And if this episode resonated with you, send it to another mom who carries the weight of the world and struggles to let others help. Because sometimes strength isn't found carrying everything yourself. Sometimes strength is found in accepting kindness when it shows up.